Welcome to 28 Days and Beyond,
where we talk about our history, our heritage, and our culture.
I'm Amari.
I'm Kharisma. Welcome back.
Hello.
Hi, Amari.
How's it going?
It's going well.
Good.
How about you?
Good. I'm doing wonderful.
Good.
Wonderfully, that's an adverb.
Wonderful. Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
So today. So I don't know if social media exposes to us things that are new or things that have always been around but have previously had no exposure.
I'd say a little bit of both.
One of the things that we see a proliferation of is black travel. Black people traveling all over the world to exotic places. But the fact is, there's a very strong history of travel for black people, particularly in this country. You know, dating from obviously, you know, the great calamity of that was the transatlantic slave trade. But I'm talking about folks who were sort of going out on their own to find themselves, to find a life for themselves, right? Instances of people going to resettle in Africa, moving to the Caribbean, Martin Delaney trying to find a place for black people to resettle in Central America. But nowadays, as black people have, you know, more access to, you know, leisure time, a little bit extra money to be able to make these moves, we see a lot of people traveling.
Yes.
I know you are an extensive traveler yourself.
Extensive?
I mean, you be out.
I try to be.
Yeah.
Well, I've made it a point at this stage of my life to go someplace overseas once a year.
Once a year.
Yeah, that's been my, because I feel like it's important to see the world, right? I remember growing up and talking to some of the other kids, you know, in my neighborhood, and even some of the adults, and hearing people say things like they had never been out of Philadelphia. And that's not to make, you know, anybody feel bad if they haven't had the opportunity to travel, but I just feel like the world is so big.
The world is so big.
And so the more you can expose yourself to with, you know, a variety of cultures, climates, languages, all of that is part of the beauty of life and the human experience. So if you have an opportunity to do that, I say go for it.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that, you know, so much can be learned about the world, but more so much can be learned about you.
Yeah,
you know,
for
just
sure.
by being in different environments and making different connections, whether, you know, things that you wouldn't have thought of previously. It really is a very powerful thing.
Yes.
And I think particularly for black folks in this country, you know, this country has a history of not treating us well at all.
Yes.
Right? Killing us at every corner, or, you know, imprisoning us, or, you know, otherwise making us feel inferior.
Yes.
To step outside of this environment and realize that this world is so much more than what is around us is a really powerful thing.
Absolutely.
Today's guest is Corey Carter, who is a friend of mine, but, you know, I really respect this brother because he is someone who has committed to traveling on a quest to find himself, to sort of tap into his cultural heritage, and ultimately to heal. So we'll be joined with Corey Carter when we come back on 28 Days and Beyond. And we're back on 28 Days and Beyond, joined now by Corey Carter.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Corey, you've been a traveling man, moving through places, space and time.
Yes.
What's up?
Yes.
What brought you to travel? Is it something you've always been into?
Yeah, I've had, you know, a bucket list for a long time. Just I didn't have the means to make it happen, you know, until unfortunately 2015, 2016, my marriage, you know, took a turn and got divorced, and for that point it was my time to, you know, explore, just to do things that I wanted to do for myself, you know. So travel for me was just a search to rediscover myself, you know, just a self-journey, a lot of healing that was required, you know, and I figured let me go explore and, you know, learn more about myself. Yeah.
So what are some of the things, because a lot of times when people talk about travel, we don't necessarily hear this other component where it's like self-discovery, like travel with the purpose of self-discovery. It's more for leisure or, you know, fun, or pictures for Instagram.
Banana boats, things like that, yeah.
But for you, you know, what's the link between the two, the connection between self-discovery and travel in your experience?
Yeah. Well, just going out and exploring, you know, just traveling, just taking that trip by yourself, you know, you get a lot of time to reflect, you know. You also learn more about yourself, just being in different environments, being around different cultures, you know. So I got a chance to learn more about, you know, where I went wrong, you know, in my in my relationships. Learn more about things that I'm interested in, you know, and I found that I really have a passion for helping other people, you know. So in my travels, you know, it started out just taking just little leisure trips, you know, going to beaches, you know, partying and stuff like that. But then, you know, it transitioned into something more meaningful, more purposeful. You know, when I got a chance to go to Kenya, and just found out some of the issues that they were dealing with, you know, in certain regions of Kenya. And from that point on, I decided, you know what, let me start to let me do what I can to give back, you know, to help other people.
And what did that include?
That included working with the Maasai tribe, which, you know, I had some friends who are Maasai, and at the time they were dealing with like a drought. You know, they weren't having rain for some time, and also they were telling me about how young girls as young as 8 years old, you know, were forced into early marriages, and female genital mutilation, FGM. Right, so I never heard anything about FGM before prior to me going to that, and you know, once I learned about it, I felt compelled just to do what I can, you know, just to help out. So I partnered with a nonprofit that was already there working, and we helped to rescue over 80 girls from the forced marriages. And since then, I've been just speaking out. I brought 2 Maasai men to Philadelphia last year, you know, so we can raise awareness, raise money. You know, so I've just been doing my part. Just, yeah.
So what are you mentioned Kenya, what are some of the other places that you travel to that you feel like you have a connection with?
So after Kenya, so I was back and forth between Philadelphia and Kenya for the year of 2017. I'm sorry, 2018. And I also had some friends in South Africa. So I went to South Africa, and I felt so at home in South Africa, in Johannesburg, you know. I felt so welcome. And one of the things that always stuck with me when I got off the plane, just strangers were just walking up to me at the airport saying, "Welcome home, brother," you know,
wow.
"Welcome home," you know. And it just felt so, it touched me, you know, it touched me. So I ended up getting in an apartment in South Africa, in Johannesburg, and I've just been back and forth, you know, from Philadelphia to Johannesburg. And I still go to Kenya from time to time as well. So.
Wow.
You know, a lot of people brag about being bi-coastal. My man is bi-continental.
He's you know, stepped it up.
That's it. I mean,
Next
there's so much
level.
more that we want to get into, Corey. We've got to take a break right now.
Sure.
So we'll be back with more 28 Days and Beyond when we come back.
Welcome back to 28 Days and Beyond. So a little bit before the break, you were talking about the fact that you've not only spent time in Kenya, but you also spend a large chunk of time and that you're, how did you put it?
Bi-continental.
Yes, bi-continental, spending time in South Africa as well.
Yes.
So could you share a bit more about your time in South Africa?
In South Africa. So as I mentioned, when I got there, I felt at home, I felt welcome. And it helped me gain a better sense of cultural identity, you know, and I realized that when I would come back to Philadelphia, you know, a lot of people would ask me questions, a lot of people would contact me on social media, you know, ask me questions about what is it like, you know, how can they also visit South Africa? How can they also move to South Africa? And I realized that a lot of African Americans have not traveled to the continent.
Right.
You know, I think you mentioned like a lot of African Americans have not even been outside of their state, you know, and don't even have a passport. So it just sparked an idea in my head. Like I just wanted to help connect cultures, you know. I wanted African Americans to get more exposure to travel, more exposure to the continent, to Africa, you know. So, yeah.
So what are some of the things you've been working on to sort of facilitate that exposure?
Yeah, so I've been in South Africa. I've been partnering with women artisans who make jewelry, South African Zulu jewelry, and recently partnered with a Senegalese fashion designer who makes jackets out of Senegalese African fabric, right? So I've been bringing the pieces to Philadelphia and selling them, and just going back and forth, you know, just trying to give people here in the States like I said, a better sense of identity. Get them, you know, just get them a better feel for the continent. You know.
In the opening, I was talking about, you know, sort of the history of black people traveling outside of this country, part of which was looking for a more hospitable environment to reside. Now, we know South Africa ain't no paradise, right? But from your experience in Kenya and South Africa, what do you see it as a place that could be beneficial for more people to you know, spend more amount of time than just simply a vacation? Or
Definitely. When I was in Kenya, like I said, I was doing specific work, working with, you know, the nonprofit and advocating for the young girls, right? So I spent more time in South Africa, and I was able to look at different business opportunities. And I can honestly say that there are a lot of opportunities for people to start their own business, you know, in South Africa, in Johannesburg. It's definitely opportunity there. You know.
wow.
One of the other things that you mentioned as I'm looking at your digs, because it's pretty dope,
I mean, you're doing his thing.
is, you know, even giving people an opportunity to just, you know, start with the fabrics that come from the continent, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Seeing the different designs and connecting on that level, because so much of that history was taken away from us,
Oh,
you know what I
certainly.
mean? So
Yeah.
starting, I can't even say starting small, because that's not a small feat, but even exposing people to something like designs and patterns
Yes.
is really
Yes.
important.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that you said earlier was you had it on your bucket list to travel, but you didn't have the means, right?
Right.
There are a lot of folks watching. There are a lot of folks out there who say, I want to travel, but come on, man, I can't pay, you know, because you know how they be jacking up the prices. It'd be like $650 to get to Europe, but then it'd be like, you know, $1650 to get to Africa.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
But how can people sort of make this happen?
Prioritize travel, all right? And so there are different websites, and this is a travel hack. There are different websites that you can follow where they have flight deals.
Oh, yeah, like,
You know,
was it
like
There's
2 months
quite a
ago,
few
they
of
had a
them.
round trip flight to South Africa, to Johannesburg, for $350 or something
Whoa.
like that. Okay, less than what you would pay to get to California
Yeah.
from Philadelphia.
Mhm.
So it's doable, you know.
It just
just gotta
takes,
be on
it
it.
takes some work.
Yes.
Well, where
Yes.
can the folks out there follow you in your journey and learn more about the work that you've been doing both here and in Africa?
Yeah, so I post my journey primarily on social media, on Instagram, you know, and my Instagram handle is CConnect360, which stands for Connecting Cultures Around the Globe.
Wonderful.
Yes,
Well, thank you so much for coming
Yeah.
and joining us today. I really
Thank you.
enjoyed our conversation.
I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
We'll be back with more 28 Days and Beyond right after this.
And we're back with more 28 Days and Beyond.
Yes, we
Kharisma.
are. I feel like I need to be bicontinental.
Yo, I mean, he made it look so easy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's what he said though. You have to prioritize
Prioritizing.
travel, and I think, like, you know, that could be misleading because to say prioritize travel for travel's sake. I mean, it seems like he's motivated by something larger than just showing up and taking pictures. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
for sure.
Yeah.
So I think that's important too. One thing that I took away from this was, you know, this idea of not just traveling for traveling's sake.
Yeah.
You know, it's great to see the world and explore cultures, but also seeing what you can do in the communities that you're visiting to make those places a better place after you leave. I think is important
Yeah,
too.
certainly.
So-
I mean, you know, I am a strong proponent of Pan-Africanism.
Yes.
You know, and I think that, like, a lot of times, you know, that doesn't need to be as grandiose as we're gonna bring all the people. It's like, yo, just showing up and sort of
Yeah.
being that ambassador and making that connection.
Being present. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to going back to the continent.
Mm-hmm.
I've only been once, but it was one of the best trips of my life. We talked
Right.
about that a little bit last season. So yeah, I'm looking forward to going back and seeing various places and hopefully
What
learning
places?
some more. I would love to go to Ghana, Ethiopia. It's on the list.
Ethiopia.
Yes. South Africa. I've wanted
South
to go to
Africa.
South Africa for a really long time.
You know, I never wanted to go to South Africa.
Why not?
When I was growing up, I was like,
Apartheid?
oh, this how they be treating people?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh.
they don't seem like it's no better than here. But as I've gotten older, especially like with the music that's coming out of
Oh,
South Africa, I mean,
yeah.
it's such a strong culture.
Absolutely.
I think it's beautiful, you know. So I'd really love to learn more about, you know, what's going on there for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like every time I travel, it opens up my eyes to just what I'm like in different parts of the world. if that makes sense.
Oh, so you like change it up?
No, I feel like different parts of the world bring out different things in you. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
Nah, but you know, I think that I can understand that,
Yeah.
and I can appreciate that. I think one of the things that's always been important to me is that you know, we are an African people, and Africa, like, you know, obviously I love going to the Caribbean and spending time in the Caribbean,
Yeah.
which is, you know, Africa on this side,
Yes.
but nothing beats.
Nothing like going home.
Oh my goodness gracious, such a beautiful thing.
We'll visit some of those flight hubs and plan a trip.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, you know, because I'm trying to hit up all those places.
Yes.
Senegal, Angola, Mozambique, anywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah. This has been another episode of 28 Days and Beyond.
Where we talk about our history, our heritage, and our culture. We'll see you next time.
Peace.